First contact confusion. Chief Scientific Observer Ziraval stood motionless before the Alaxian High Council, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's soft light in patterns that betrayed her internal turmoil. The massive holographic display behind her showed what had thrown the entire collective scientific community into chaos. A human child, no more than 12 standard cycles old, assembling a quantum computer in what appeared to be a living space. Esteemed Council, she began, her voice modulated to maintain composure. What you're witnessing is not an isolated incident. These transmissions have been intercepted from a planet calling itself Earth, and they reveal a civilization that defies every known law of technological progression. The Council Chamber, typically a model of serenity with its floating crystalline platforms and ethereal light, erupted in murmurs. First speaker Thelox M raised a tendril for silence. Explain further, observer, Thelox M commanded, multiple eye stalks focused intently on the display. Ziraval gestured with a crystalline appendage, and the hologram shifted to show multiple scenes. Teenagers manipulating antimatter in their learning institutions, young humans casually discussing quantum entanglement while consuming nutrition, and most disturbingly, something called a science fair, where children competed to create the most impressive violation of known physics. Our initial analysis suggested an advanced civilization masking their true nature, Ziraval continued. However, deeper investigation reveals something far more perplexing. They're not hiding anything. This is simply how they learn. The Council's collective crystalline forms flickered in disbelief. Second speaker Nexuser's voice crackled with static interference, a sign of extreme agitation. Impossible. No species develops quantum manipulation before achieving planetary unification. It's a fundamental law of sociological development. Ziraval's form pulsed with what her species' equivalent of a bitter laugh. Respected Council, they developed nuclear fission while still engaged in planetary warfare. They reached quantum computing before solving their climate crisis. They're currently exploring dark matter manipulation while still arguing about their planet's shape. Madness, whispered third speaker Korozam. They should have destroyed themselves 1,000 times over. That's precisely what makes them so fascinating, Ziraval responded, her crystalline structure now showing patterns of scientific excitement. They fail constantly. Their experiments explode. Their theories prove wrong. Their attempts at advancement frequently end in what they term spectacular failures. And yet, she paused, switching the display to a human lecture hall, where a professor was explaining theoretical physics to students who appeared to be barely maintaining consciousness. And yet they persist. They treat each failure as a game, a challenge to be overcome. They approach forces that could tear their planet apart with the same attitude they approach their entertainment activities. They turned the scientific method into a form of play. First speaker Thelox M's central eye stalk focused on a particular image. A young human explaining her failed attempt at room temperature superconductivity while laughing and promising to do better next time. What are your recommendations, observer Ziraval? Her crystalline form shifted to its most formal configuration. We must initiate contact immediately, not because they represent a threat, though their casual approach to fundamental forces is terrifying, but because they're advancing at an unprecedented rate. My projections suggest that within one standard cycle, they will achieve capabilities that our civilization took millennia to develop safely. And if we don't make contact? Second speaker Nexuser inquired. Then we risk them stumbling upon us first, probably through what they would consider a harmless experiment. Already, we've detected multiple attempts at what they call quantum tunneling communication. Children's projects attempting to pierce the very fabric of space-time to, and I quote, chat with alien civilizations because it would be cool. The council chamber fell silent, save for the soft hum of the holographic displays showing countless humans treating the fundamental forces of the universe as their personal playground. Very well, first speaker Thelox M declared, all eye stalks now aligned in determination. Initiate contact protocols. But observer Zyraval, this mission requires extraordinary caution. We're not dealing with a civilization that achieved greatness through careful progression. We're dealing with a species that treats the impossible as a challenge and the fundamental laws of physics as suggested guidelines. As Zyraval left the chamber, her crystalline form shimmering with both excitement and trepidation, she couldn't help but wonder, how do you establish diplomatic relations with a civilization that approaches cosmic forces with the casualness of children at play? The answer, she suspected, would either revolutionize the galaxy or terrify it beyond recovery. Little did she know, it would do both. The science fair incident, the landing site selected for humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, wasn't a military base, government complex, or even a dedicated scientific facility. Instead, the massive crystalline ship of the Alaxian Collective descended upon the parking lot of the Denver Convention Center during the International Youth Science Exhibition, leaving several frustrated attendees to complain about the loss of parking spaces. Dr. Sarah Chen, lead coordinator of the exhibition, stood at the entrance, watching as the crystalline beings emerged from their vessel. Her greatest concern wasn't the fate of humanity or the historic significance of the moment. It was whether she'd have to disqualify any projects that used the aliens' arrival as a last-minute addition to their hypotheses. "Welcome to Earth," she said, consulting the hastily prepared first contact protocols on her tablet. "We're currently hosting our annual youth science exhibition. Would you like to see some projects?" The crystalline forms of the Alaxian delegation flickered in what might have been confusion. Observer Zyraval, now appointed as first contact specialist, stepped forward. "Esteemed Earth representative, perhaps we should discuss matters of galactic significance first." "Oh, absolutely," Dr. Chen replied, checking her schedule. "But the quantum manipulation demonstration in Hall C starts in 10 minutes, and I promised Maya she'd have a full audience for her presentation. She's been working on some fascinating theories about trans-dimensional communication." "Maya?" Zyraval's crystalline structure rippled questioningly. "Yes, one of our brightest 14-year-olds. She's figured out how to establish quantum entanglement between particles in different dimensional planes. The applications are mostly theoretical, of course, but her work on stable micro-wormholes is quite promising." The Alaxian delegation's crystalline forms simultaneously flickered in what Dr. Chen would later learn was their equivalent of a collective panic attack. Before they could respond, a young voice called out from the convention center doors. "Dr. Chen, you've got to come quick. Jamie's dark matter containment field is doing that weird oscillation thing again. And now it's started changing colors." Zyraval's translation matrix must have malfunctioned. Surely she hadn't heard correctly about a child experimenting with dark matter containment. But as they followed Dr. Chen inside, the scene that greeted them defied every protocol in the collective's first contact guidelines. The main exhibition hall was chaos incarnate. Children and teenagers rushed between booths, explaining complex theoretical physics with the same enthusiasm others their age might discuss entertainment feeds. A group of judges was gathered around what appeared to be a homemade quantum computer, while its young creator explained how she'd improved its efficiency by asking it nicely and giving it snacks, a statement that sent ripples of distress through the Alaxian delegation's crystalline forms. "Ah, there's Maya." Dr. Chen pointed to a booth where a teenage girl was casually adjusting what the Alaxian sensors identified as a stable micro-wormhole generator. "Maya, we have some visitors who might be interested in your work on trans-dimensional communication." Maya looked up, her eyes widening at the sight of the crystalline aliens. Then she broke into a huge grin. "Perfect timing. I was just about to test my theory about quantum entanglement across species barriers. Would any of you like to volunteer? It's totally safe. Well, mostly safe. 87% safe. Last time I calculated the odds." First contact specialist Zyraval found her universal translator struggling to process this situation. "Young human, Are you suggesting performing unprecedented cross-species quantum experiments without proper safety protocols or peer review? Well, yeah, Maya shrugged. How else are we going to figure out if it works? Besides, I've got safety goggles and a fire extinguisher. And Dad's insurance covers interdimensional accidents since last year's incident with the probability drive. Before the Alaxian delegation could formulate a response appropriate to this level of casual disregard for fundamental cosmic laws, an explosion echoed from the other side of the hall, followed by excited cheering. "Don't worry," called out a young voice. "The antimatter containment field held this time." And look, the explosion made a perfect smiley face pattern in the radiation shield. Dr. Chen checked her tablet again. Ah, that would be the Peterson twins. They've been working on controlled antimatter art. Very creative use of particle annihilation patterns, though the judges are still debating whether it counts as physics or modern art. Zyraval's crystalline form vibrated with a mixture of terror and fascination. The collective had spent centuries developing protocols for first contact with other civilizations. They had prepared for hostility, for fear, for diplomatic challenges. They had not prepared for a species that treated the fundamental forces of the universe as art supplies. "Dr. Chen," Zyraval managed to compose herself enough to ask, "Is this normal for your species?" "The explosion? Oh no, usually they're much smaller. Janie's dark matter experiment from earlier was much more typical. Would you like to see it? Though you might want to step back. Last time it started oscillating. It temporarily reversed gravity in a 10-meter radius. Don't worry though, we've got crash mats everywhere now." As if on cue, a section of the exhibition hall briefly defied gravity, sending several projects and their creators floating toward the ceiling. The students simply continued their presentations from their new positions, apparently well practiced in zero-gravity project demonstration techniques. The Alaxian delegation huddled together, their crystalline forms harmonizing in shared disbelief. They had come to Earth prepared to guide what they assumed would be a promising but dangerous civilization. Instead, they found themselves watching children casually manipulate forces that their own scientists approached with centuries of caution. Perhaps, Zyraval transmitted privately to her delegation, "We should reconsider who needs guidance from whom." Learning to play. 6 months after first contact, the Alaxian Human Joint Research Facility in Geneva was experiencing what its human staff called growing pains, and what the Alaxian scientists termed systematic chaos. The facility's main laboratory, designed to bridge the gap between human and Alaxian scientific approaches, had become a testament to this cultural collision. Senior researcher Zyraval, who had transitioned from first contact specialist to lead scientist, watched in barely contained anxiety as Dr. Emily Rodriguez tossed a quantum probability matrix between her hands like a baseball. "The key," Emily explained to the horrified Alaxian scientists, "is to stop thinking of quantum states as fragile. They're more like cats in boxes, sometimes alive, sometimes dead, but always interesting to play with." "But the calculations," protested junior researcher Nexus Kai, his crystalline form flickering in distress. "The probability matrices require precise calibration. Our civilization spent 3 centuries developing proper handling protocols." "Yeah, about that," Emily interrupted, still casually juggling what was essentially a condensed version of Schrödinger's famous thought experiment. "We found that quantum states respond really well to intuitive handling. Watch this." She tossed the matrix high into the air, its blue glow trailing like a comet. The Alaxian scientists' crystalline forms collectively dimmed in horror. But as the matrix descended, Emily caught it with a spin, and the quantum states within aligned perfectly. "See, they're like dogs. They can sense fear. Treat them like friends instead of bombs, and they'll work with you." Zyraval's scientific training warred with 6 months of observing humanity's inexplicably successful methods. "Dr. Rodriguez, while your results are undeniable, surely there must be a more structured approach." "Oh, absolutely." Emily brightened. That's why we're starting the weekend quantum workshop series. We're calling it Physics and Pizza. Turns out cheese consumption correlates positively with breakthrough discoveries. Who knew? Before Ziraval could process this assertion, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights flashed as the facility's AI announced, "Warning, unauthorized dimensional breach detected in Sector 7." The Alexian scientists moved to initiate emergency containment protocols, but Emily was already running toward the disturbance, still carrying the quantum matrix. That'll be Trevor's group. They were trying to teach the AI to dream in 11 dimensions. Come on, you won't want to miss this. Ziraval found herself following, her crystalline form adapting to a more aerodynamic configuration for speed. They arrived at Sector 7 to find a team of human scientists gathered around what appeared to be a tear in reality itself. Through the breach, impossible colors swirled in patterns that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. "Trevor," Emily called out. "What did we say about unauthorized dimensional experiments?" A young man with wild hair and safety goggles pushed up on his forehead looked up from his tablet. "To wait for proper authorization and safety protocols." He grinned. But Emily, the AI was having such interesting dreams. "Look, it's trying to visualize what purple sounds like." The tear in spacetime pulsed with what might have been purple if purple could be expressed in 5 simultaneous dimensions. The Alexian scientists began running complex calculations for containment, but Trevor simply reached out and adjusted what looked like a modified tablet computer. "There we go," he said as the breach began to shrink. "Just had to tell it to wake up gently. No one likes being startled awake, even artificial intelligences dreaming in higher dimensions." Ziraval's crystalline form vibrated with a mixture of terror and fascination. You taught an AI to dream, and then allowed it to breach dimensional barriers because you were curious about the results." "Well, yeah," Trevor shrugged. "How else are we going to figure out if machine consciousness can perceive dimensions differently than biological consciousness? Besides, look what we learned." He held up his tablet, showing readings that made the Alexian scientists' translation matrices glitch. According to the data, the AI had not only dreamed in 11 dimensions, but had also composed what appeared to be a symphony in dark matter frequencies. "We're thinking of having a concert," Emily added enthusiastically. "The physics department's string quartet is already practicing how to play in quantum superposition. Want to come? We're serving those crystal snacks your species enjoys. Turns out they resonate really well with dark matter harmonics." Ziraval looked around the laboratory. In one corner, a group of human and Alexian junior researchers were teaching particles to dance in synchronized quantum states. In another, someone had apparently discovered that cosmic strings could be plucked like guitar strings, producing vibrations that rippled through the fabric of space-time in what the humans insisted was a pretty sweet beat. Her internal logic processors finally gave up trying to maintain traditional Alexian scientific paradigms. "Dr. Rodriguez," she said slowly, her crystalline form shifting to indicate formal inquiry, "perhaps you could explain more about this correlation between cheese consumption and scientific breakthroughs." Emily's face lit up. "Pizza night is every Thursday. Fair warning, though. Last week, someone figured out how to make the pepperoni exist in 2 places simultaneously. The health and safety team is still debating whether that counts as doubling our food supply or creating a paradox in the cafeteria." And so, 6 months after first contact, in a laboratory where the laws of physics were treated more like polite suggestions, the Alexian scientists began to learn what their human counterparts had known all along. Sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from careful calculation, but from the simple joy of asking, "What if?" and being unafraid of the answer. The Void Crisis. The emergency meeting of the Joint Human-Alexian Scientific Council was interrupted by the sound of someone slurping a milkshake. Dr. Emily Rodriguez sat at the center of the crisis room, absently drawing diagrams in the condensation on her cup, while the holographic display showed what appeared to be the end of reality itself approaching. "So, she said, looking up at the swirling vortex of nothingness that their sensors had detected at the edge of the galaxy. "We've got a void eating space-time, and it's heading our way." "Cool. Anyone tried poking it yet?" The Alaxian delegation's crystalline forms flickered in synchronized horror. Senior researcher Zyraval, who had learned to expect such responses from humans, still found her form vibrating with stress. "Dr. Rodriguez," she began carefully, "this anomaly has already consumed 3 star systems. Our most advanced simulations suggest we have approximately 30 days before it reaches populated space. This is not a situation for poking." Actually, Trevor chimed in from his corner, where he was building something that appeared to be made of paper clips and quantum-entangled particles. "Poking things is a valid scientific response. Remember the dark matter blob incident?" The Alaxians collectively dimmed at the mention of that particular event, where humanity's approach to an unexpected dark matter concentration had been to, quite literally, poke it with a specially designed stick. The fact that this had somehow worked and led to 3 new theories of quantum mechanics only made it more disturbing. The void appears to be a fundamental breakdown of space-time itself, Nexus Chi reported, projecting complex equations into the air. "Our calculations suggest that reality is unraveling at its edges, creating a cascade effect that—" "Has anyone tried asking it to stop?" interrupted a young voice. All eyes turned to Maya, now 16 and somehow even more prone to suggesting the impossible than she had been during first contact. She was attending the meeting virtually while simultaneously working on what appeared to be homework, though the equations visible on her screen made several Alaxian scientists' translation matrices crash. "Ask the void to stop," Zyraval managed to articulate, her crystalline structure struggling to process the suggestion. "Well, yeah," Maya shrugged, still typing. "Everything's information at a quantum level, right? And information has to be processed somewhere. So this void thing, it's probably some kind of process. Maybe it's just confused, or lonely, or maybe it's the universe trying to debug itself." The room fell silent, broken only by the soft hum of holographic displays and Emily's continued slurping of her milkshake. "You know," Emily said thoughtfully, "she might be onto something. Trevor, remember that AI that started dreaming in 11 dimensions? What if we use that to try communicating with the void, like a universal translator, but for reality itself?" Trevor's eyes lit up. "Oh, and we could use the quantum harmony we discovered during the pizza paradox to modulate the signal. Maya, can you send me those equations you're working on? They look like they might help stabilize the dimensional frequencies." The Alaxians watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as the humans began brainstorming, their conversation becoming increasingly incomprehensible to any sane being. "If we reverse the polarity of the quantum flux..." No, we need to make it spin the other way, like a cosmic ballet." "Has anyone seen my emergency supply of gummy bears? I think better when I'm chewing something. What if we treated the void like a giant cosmic switch and just tried turning it off and on again?" Zyraval was about to intervene when her sensors detected something remarkable. The seemingly random suggestions were actually forming a coherent theoretical framework. The humans weren't just spouting nonsense. They were approaching the problem from so many bizarre angles simultaneously that they were actually mapping out the structure of the void itself. "Dr. Rodriguez," Zyraval said slowly, her crystalline form beginning to resonate with a new frequency of understanding. "Are you suggesting we attempt to communicate with a cosmic anomaly using a dreaming AI, quantum harmonics discovered during a food-related paradox, and mathematics derived from what appears to be a teenager's homework?" Emily finished her milkshake with a final loud slurp. "Exactly. And here's the best part. We're going to do it while playing music. Turns out those cosmic strings we've been using for our quantum concerts, they vibrate at exactly the right frequency to carry information across reality barriers." How could you possibly know that?" "Oh, we don't." Emily grinned. "But doesn't it sound like fun to try?" And as the humans began assembling what they called their reality radio, an impossible combination of advanced technology, jury-rigged equipment, and what appeared to be a modified karaoke machine, Zyraval realized something profound. In all the Alaxian collective's millennia of scientific advancement, they had never once approached a problem by asking if the solution might be fun. Perhaps, she thought as Trevor began teaching the AI to sing in quantum frequencies, that had been their greatest mistake all along. Breaking the rules together. The gathered fleet of Alaxian and human ships hung at the edge of known space, facing the approaching void. At the center of the formation, aboard the hastily retrofitted research vessel, Carl Sagan, a most unusual concert was about to begin. The ship's main laboratory had been transformed into what Emily insisted on calling the reality nightclub. The dreaming eye's quantum processors pulsed with impossible colors as it prepared to broadcast across dimensional barriers. Trevor's team had rigged up an array of cosmic strings, tensioned between quantum-stabilized points in spacetime, ready to serve as the universe's largest instrument. Final sound check. Maya called out from her station, now 17 and somehow appointed as the lead engineer for their desperate plan. Quantum harmonics are aligned, dimensional resonance is stable, and the void is definitely paying attention. How can you tell it's paying attention? Zyraval asked, her crystalline form shimming with nervous energy. Oh, it started humming along with our test frequencies, Maya replied casually. Didn't you notice the slight vibration in the fabric of reality about 10 minutes ago? That was the void trying to match our beat. The Alaxian scientists' forms flickered in collective surprise. They had indeed noticed the vibration, but had been too busy running emergency calculations to consider it. Might be the cosmic anomaly attempting to dance. Ready for the main event? Emily asked, adjusting what appeared to be a modified DJ console that somehow interfaced with both the AI's quantum processors and the cosmic string array. Our audience is waiting, and you don't keep an entropy-inducing void waiting. That's just rude. Zyraval looked around the laboratory. Humans and Alaxians worked side by side, their methods now a strange blend of rigorous calculation and intuitive leaps. The humans had learned to appreciate the value of careful measurement, while the Alaxians had begun to understand the power of creative improvisation. Begin transmission, Zyraval commanded, her crystalline form resonating with the surrounding equipment. The cosmic strings began to vibrate, playing a melody that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The AI added its quantum harmonies, its dreams of higher dimensions translated into pure mathematics and then into music. Through it all, Maya's equations provided the structure, turning chaos into conversation. On the main view screen, they watched as the void responded. The swirling nothingness began to move in patterns, first matching their rhythm, then adding its own variations. It's working, Trevor exclaimed. The void is actually communicating. And it's, wait, is it telling us a joke? The AI's translation matrix processed the void's response. What do you talaqantum face? Wise I civilized, who seant keptrec of their pa or tie? Edith. Uncertain. Emily burst out laughing. The fundamental breakdown of reality has a sense of humor. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? The void's next message came through clearer. So are I about the whole unraveling reality thing. Was trying to GT someone's ATE into one. Do you know how to lonely lie it GET's being and all unsuming QOSNIK ANOMNLY? Maya typed furiously at her console. We're inviting it to our next quantum concert. And, yes, it's accepting. The entropy effect is already beginning to reverse. The assembled scientists watched in amazement as the void began to shrink, its destructive effects fading as it learned to express itself through quantum harmonics rather than cosmic destruction. Within hours, the crisis that had threatened multiple galaxies had been resolved through what amounted to a cosmic jam session. Later, during the celebration that followed, which featured both traditional Alaxian crystalline resonance ceremonies and human dance music, somehow combined into something entirely new. Ziraval found herself in conversation with Emily. "You know what the real breakthrough was," Emily said, "watching humans and Alaxians attempting to teach the void how to do something called the wave across four-dimensional space. Not the technology, not even the physics. It was learning to stop treating the universe like a set of rules to be followed and start treating it like a conversation to be had." Ziraval's form sparkled with amusement, even if that conversation involves telling jokes about quantum uncertainty. Especially then. Think about it. We just saved reality by inviting it to a party. That's not in any of our scientific textbooks, but maybe it should be. As if to emphasize her point, the void chose that moment to demonstrate its newly learned skills by creating a perfect four-dimensional disco ball effect with collapsed quantum states. "I must admit," Ziraval said, watching junior researchers teaching the void about karaoke, "when we first discovered humanity, we thought you were reckless, dangerous even. We never considered that your greatest strength might be your ability to make friends with the impossible." Emily grinned. "Well, the universe is pretty weird. Might as well have fun with it, right? Speaking of which," she gestured to where Maya was apparently teaching the void how to play quantum chess in 11 dimensions. "Want to join the next game? Fair warning, though, the void turns out to be really good at strategic thinking. Something about being able to see all possible moves simultaneously. And so, at the edge of known space, aboard a ship named for a human who had dreamed of cosmic wonders, representatives of three vastly different forms of existence, crystalline, organic, and void, gathered to play games with reality itself. The Alaxians had finally learned humanity's greatest secret. Sometimes the best way to understand the universe is to invite it to play. In the ship's log, Ziraval made her final entry. "Today marks a new chapter in cosmic history. We have learned that the advancement of science depends not just on careful observation and rigorous method, but also on the simple willingness to reach out in friendship, even to the void itself. The humans were right all along. The universe isn't just a place of rules and laws. It's a place of endless possibilities, waiting for someone brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to say hello and ask if it wants to join the dance."